a sandwich with you, sir?
I'll get drive-through.
Bruce Wayne. In the flesh.
I don't need that hand back.
Yes. My invention beams any TV signal directly into the human brain.
Mind manipulation, tampering with people's brain waves. It just raises too many questions.
Let's send you a riddle.
The riddle.
I will help you solve the greatest riddle of all. Who is Batman?
Lock.
My place. Midnight.
Chair. Alfred,
I saw the signal, sir.
I've left Wayne Enterprises en route to the Batcave.
Always ready, sir. Let's start this party with a bang! Your entrance was good. His was better. Difference. Showmanship.
I sent the signal.
You called me here for this? That signal is not a beeper.
We could give it a try. I'll bring the wine. Or do I need skin tight fine on here?
Like the jacket? It keeps me safe when I'm jogging at night. I need a name. Batboy, Nightwing. What's a good sidekick? Help me. All right, train me. Let me be your partner.
I want to be close, but you won't let me near.
I'm a part of this, whether you like it or not.
The real game begins.
And welcome to a new episode of the Movie Dawgs Show. We are continuing our countdown to the Batman. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are going there. Nipplegate, as a lot of people called it back in the late 90s when it came to the two Batman movies we are going to be discussing. This was more likely is going to be a two-parter. But so bear with me, folks. All right, folks, we're going to be talking about Batman Forever, which for the longest time was my favorite Batman movie until 2008's Dark Knight. And we will be discussing what is called Batman and Robin. All right. If you haven't yet, like us on Facebook, everyone. And again, check out our new sponsor, Fresh in the Flesh Tattoo. That's right. Tony Lloyd, ladies and gentlemen. Tattoo Tony. Check him out here on these links and this information here. Hey, everybody, give him a shout out. Tattoo Tony rocks. One last thing, everyone. Like this video. Be sure to hit the thumbs up. Let's get the algorithms going on this show and on this channel on YouTube. And the best way also, folks, to support this channel is by subscribing. If you haven't yet, subscribe to the Movie Dawgs here on YouTube. All right, Batman Forever came out in the summer of '95. That was a pretty busy year when it came to movies. A lot of great movies came out. But Batman Forever was just becoming a big event film. They had the best, I have to say, it had the best marketing since the first film back in '89. I mean, this was plastered everywhere. You saw posters, billboards. You saw those wonderful McDonald's mugs that was sold that sadly I never was able to get my hands on because they sold out quickly. And they're a very sought out item even to this day. The merchandising was amazing. The toys, the action figures were iffy because they were they were a couple bigger than the previous Batman toys, but the vehicles were amazing. I mean, that electronic Batmobile, which I had up till like a few months back, I sadly had to sell it, but I have my favorite model kit of the Batman Forever Batmobile. It lit up and it was pretty cool. But you know, it was a big push. A lot of things had gone on in the making of this film. A lot of people were like, because of the backlash of Batman Returns, does people want another Batman movie? Well, yes and no. Now, Tim Burton had started developing what would have been his third Batman film, and he was going to use the Riddler. And rumors had been floating around who's going to play the Riddler. Was it going to be Robin Williams, who had actually went out to try to get the Joker part? Or, you know, there was always a lot of rumors and stuff going on that, you know, he was told he was going to have the role and then it got changed. So, but the studio was kind of hesitant on having Burton do another film because of, again, the backlash of Batman Returns. So, he kind of saw the writing on the wall, got the vibe from the studio executives, but he stayed on as producer and went on to help also craft the story and make sure it kind of still blended with the previous two films in a way when it comes to the darkness. Now, Michael Keaton himself was flirting on whether or not to come back, but he decided not to. For many years up till recent, he had been always vague about why he didn't come back, and pretty much was the fact that he didn't like the script. He thought it sucked. So, you know, that's, you know, if you don't like what you're reading and you don't feel comfortable with the material, you don't like the direction, well then, don't force yourself to do it. Just move on, and, you know, as we know, he's coming back, so he hasn't completely divorced himself away from the character. I mean, it sucked because, you know, a lot of us wasn't ready to let him go as Batman. And then we were thinking, well, now who can be Batman? You know, we were kind of forced to, here's Michael Keaton as Batman. And then a lot of us is like, well, some people bitched and complained about it. But now that he was leaving, we're like bitching and complaining that he was leaving. You know, a lot of us were just, you know, worried about what the future had in store for the Caped Crusader. There enters Joel Schumacher. Now, Joel Schumacher had a very impressive directing credit behind him. Those who don't know, he directed a movie called DC Cab, which was a comedy. Kind of a TNA type of comedy. You wouldn't really expect it from Joel Schumacher as he went on further in his career. But he was a really great director, did some really great works. The Client is one of the movies I had to really recommend. St. Elmo's Fire was another great film that he did. He also wrote Car Wash, the 1970s classic movie that had appearances with Richard Pryor and George Carlin, So that was a surprise to me when I found out that he wrote that screenplay. So he was a very talented director, and I had a interesting it struck me with some interest. I'm like, this may work. We'll see what he's got to offer. And his take on it, as his producer called it, Saturday Night Fever on acid, was basically his take on Batman Forever. He and Tim Burton agreed when it came to the duality of the characters and the psychological profiles of the characters, and they really agreed with that. And Joel Schumacher, I think, really wanted to keep that. I don't think he really was trying to push the film in the series into the campiness that it eventually did turn into, which we'll talk later about. But I think, he went in with great intentions, and I think he did a really good job with Batman Forever. As I said, Batman Forever was my favorite Batman movie for the longest time. Now, I guess to make it not feel like a reboot, Michael Gough, who played Alfred, and Pat Hingle, who played Commissioner Gordon, were the only ones to come back from the previous two films. So I think, they decided, this is our way to keep it connected and to let people know that, no, this is a third movie. This is a sequel. Now, I do have to say, the one major change was the depiction of Gotham City. Gotham City was made more of a character in this film. As you can see, the lights, and it looked more like downtown Manhattan had started evolving into, with all the neon lights and the LED, the big screens that are on the side of the buildings. It really became a character of its own, and of course the models, and of course the CGI work done to bring Gotham City to life was so amazing. I mean, it really made Gotham City look larger than the largest city in the world. Bigger than New York could ever have been, bigger than, Chicago and, any other city around the world. It just, the scope was so amazing. And how Joel Schumacher and his director of photography used the lighting and the camera work and really made this movie its own entity and in its own presence, and gave it, the movie itself just feels like it's alive, and that it's just so, as I said, so beautifully shot. And I tell you, some of the buildings, how tall they are, it looks like you may need oxygen masks just to be in them, because the skyscrapers were so tall and so immaculate, and the sculptures, and it was just, again, wonderful take on Gotham City. Probably the best out of a lot of the Batman films. Now, when it comes to the casting, I think this was a very brilliant recasting of a character. A lot of people, when it comes to James Bond, you're always wondering who's going to be the next James Bond. But when he was announced that Val Kilmer was going to portray Batman, a lot of us are like, yeah, we can see him wearing that cowl. We can see that jawline sticking out of that cowl and portray Batman, because he always immersed himself into characters. Val Kilmer was so underrated as an actor. And if you watch my Facebook review on his documentary, Val, that's on Amazon Prime, do check it out. You will really, I hate the fact that Batman Forever got so much flack over the years, because, especially, years after it has released and everything, because it gets mixed up with Batman Forever, or Batman and Robin. But, Val Kilmer really gave a great performance, not as just Batman, but as Bruce Wayne. He gave a dark, brooding version, a tortured soul of Bruce Wayne that Michael Keaton was just starting to crack the ice on, but Val Kilmer really brought it into play here when it came to this movie. And when it came to the costume, the Batman costume in this one, I still think the cowl in Batman Returns is still the greatest one. But the one here in this film, which they call the Panther cowl now, and the body that the suit that he wore in this was just so amazing. And yes, they did put nipples on the bat suit, but why are we complaining about this? Why is people worried about this? is inspired, and Joel Schumacher said, he was inspired by the Greek sculptures, and Batman's supposed to be the perfection of physical premise, and his body is supposed to be beautifully toned, and this is Batman, folks. This is, and of course, why make it look like he's wearing just a suit where, makes it look like, it's his body. The suit is part of his body, and as a lot of people have, stated, the suit's always given Batman his powers. And it enhances his mind, because that is his most precious tool, is his mind and his endurance. Again, the suit just looked amazing. This was like, next to that, I had to say Ben Affleck's Batman. Ben Affleck's Batman suit is the perfect Batman suit, and does it justice when it comes to the comic book adaptation to live action. But Batman's, it's just sleek, and it does give a sensuality to it at the same time. But, again, it is so cool to look at as well. Now, Billy D. Williams played Harvey Dent in the 89 film. This is where where Batman Forever kind of borderlines in being a reboot or an alternate universe or a sequel. He did not get the play, which he was originally supposed to be, which I believe was the part of the deal, but they decided to go with Academy Award winning actor Tommy Lee Jones, who just recently, in a few years before, was in the movie The Client with Joel Schumacher, and just won an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor, brilliantly done in the movie Fugitive, that co-starred Harrison Ford. But Tommy Lee Jones, as much as I liked him as an actor, I think when it came to Two-Face, he just played it a little over the top. Two-Face as a character was never really an over-the-top character that was kind of like mimicking the Joker. So, but, again, you had Tommy Lee Jones in there. He did give his best that he could out of basically what looked like a silly situation. It looked more like a disco version of Two-Face. I wish they had kept with the green face instead of instead of giving him a purple face. But again, he was teamed with another villain in this movie, the villain that everybody wanted in this movie. Of course, that was Jim Carrey, who just now started to become a big household name. He was on The Living Color, which was a sketch comedy show on the Fox network. And he had just had Ace Ventura come out. I think The Mask was about to come out as well, and he was he fit the part perfect. The part was supposed to be outrageous and a little flamboyant and a little over the top, like the Joker was supposed to be. And it was more done off. He took off more of a Frank Gorsht vibe than what you're going to be getting in this new Batman movie, of course. But I do think that Jim Carrey held his own against Tommy Lee Jones. He did do a lot of ad-libbing in this film, and there was a lot of rumors whether he was getting along with Val Kilmer or not, which actually Jim Carrey didn't say anything bad about Val Kilmer over the years. He actually said that he had more of a problem working with Tommy Lee Jones, or Tommy Lee Jones just didn't care working with him. But it's the same because they did work well together in this film. The scenes with them together, they work, and as a good villain team up. Even though I still think they should have just been the Riddler as a villain, but still the villain team up when it came between Riddler and Two-Face, it really worked real well. Now, of course, superhero movies kind of started getting laced around with the love story. I'm not taking away Nicole Kidman's acting credentials. She is a really good actress, and I never just really thought that she was that hot. But for some reason, like in Batman Returns, when it came to Michelle Pfeiffer, the lighting and the makeup, Nicole Kidman really looked stunning in this film. And that's it. Never was really thought that she was all that in a bag of chips. But in this film, they really made her look really beautiful. And her and Kilmer really worked well together. And of course, she was thinking that, she was in love with two guys. She was in love with Batman, and she was in love with Bruce Wayne. which, made an interesting, little love triangle, when she's basically in love with the same guy, but two personas of the same guy. And she's being a psychiatrist at that. So, but it worked. And it really helped enhance Val Kilmer's character as Bruce Wayne and the conflict that he is dealing with Batman and Bruce Wayne. He's having a dual personality, and that is it worth it? And he has to make sacrifices, being in love and not having to, that significant other. So, I mean, they worked real well together. Again, her scenes with Batman, she was, playing the very seductive distraction, basically. She was throwing herself at Batman, this woman who's very highly educated and just basically is just, trying to give herself to the Dark Knight. And I found some comedic tone in it and everything. And also, it was very sexy dialogue between them, which kind of borderline to that PG-13 audience. Again, I don't know if they ever worked together again, but, they had a really great chemistry. I'm sad that Nicole Kidman never returned for Batman and Robin, because God knows they needed, her in that film too. Now, they did a very large talent scout search, but Joel Schumacher had always stated he wanted Chris O'Donnell to play Robin. And they had a lot of people audition for Robin. And if you watch the supplemental materials of Batman Forever on DVD and Blu-ray, you'll find out how many people really, that are now famous went after this role. Chris O'Donnell, they played it right too, that he wasn't too young, but he wasn't too old to play the character. They met in the middle and everything. Like, he was basically in his late teens, early 20s. And I love the fact that they used the Kurt and Robin likeness in the comics. That was developed by, I can't remember. I know Chuck Dixon had something to do with it. I can't remember the other artist. Tom Liddell. And a few others, and one other, I can't remember who designed the new Robin costume that they used for this movie, but it looked perfect. I mean, despite the gloves having the fins on it, other than that, Robin's costume looked absolutely amazing, and it was so comic book accurate, and it's a shame that, it didn't come back in the next film. Now, there wasn't much interaction with Batman and Robin, because Robin came towards the end of the third act. But, the chemistry between between Val Kilmer and Chris O'Donnell, it was sad that it didn't get another film together, because you can feel that, this was going to be a really good partnership between two actors in these two roles that are very iconic and possibly one of the best teams in comic book history. So I'm sad that it turned out not to be when it came to the second film. And again, the lighting and the sets in this film was just so really great. I mean, they were like some of the largest sets. A lot of people were coming just to see the sets. People who weren't even involved in the movie were just, because they weren't filming in London like the previous two. They were filming in LA, and they, just some of the set, just the lighting was so great in this film. I really can't stress, when you guys watch this movie, check the lighting and the way the film is shot. It's got a grainy but yet raw feel to it, and it's not like overly polished and CGI to death, and like, all the filters and stuff when it comes to making the actors look 100% perfect and everything. When you still watch the movie, you can still see the grain of the film, and it's not done in digital or anything like that. I really am so impressed at how well this film was shot. Now, a bonus little plus for me was that Drew Barrymore has been my lifelong celebrity crush as a little boy. And she was in this movie, and she looked beautiful in this film. And Debbie Mazar, who was a character actress, they had them at Sugar and Spice, I believe is what their character's name. That was Two-Face's girlfriends. And I can remember when my dad watched this, he goes, well, damn, that's the best of both worlds. And but, again, where can you stress? I mean, I know I'll probably get flack for this, but, I mean, really, where do you go wrong when it comes to two very beautiful women? And again, I'm biased. Drew Barrymore was just, my wife looks like her. So, there. I said it. My wife resembled Drew Barrymore, and You know, what else can I say? Now, with everything changing, the Batmobile in this film, I was hesitant at first when I saw it, but then I saw it in action, and I'm like, wow, this thing looks like it's alive. Even the Batcave was given more character, lifeless. Before it was lifeless before and everything, just like a dark cave. But in this film, it was given more lighting, and it looked alive, and you can tell that it looked like there was like a river on the bottom. And it just, in the Batmobile itself, just the opening of that film of Batman getting ready, and then watching the Batmobile come up from underneath the ground on that spiral platform was just best way to open a film. And they came, especially when the opening credits and the opening shots of this film were some of the best openings for a comic book movie. Again, the kind of neon LED lights, which were that were still new by around that standards, were just, just the rib cage in that Batmobile. I mean, as I said, it made this vehicle look like it's alive and that it can do some heavy damage and look, flashy and tough at the same time. And as I said, the cave was given more life, and it looked like it was alive itself. And I was really happy with the way Joel Schumacher had decided to recreate this, this cave, which looked pretty much like just like a dull place, if you ask me, when it came to the previous two films. Now there's a 3-hour, what they call an assembly cut of this film. Now those scenes that were taken out of the 3-hour cut are on YouTube and on the DVDs, extra features as deleted scenes. And it's sad that they were taken out because it really added even more scale and depth to these characters and gave it a more darker tone. Of course, the studio wanted to back it up a little bit because of the previous film and make it a little more kid-friendly, which sadly got pushed more into the next film. But I mean, there was a lot of great scenes that you saw in the trailers that were in those deleted scenes that didn't make it in the movie. But there's always there's been a push to try to get the Joel Schumacher cut out. I hope they do, even though sadly Joel Schumacher passed away a couple years ago. But hey, if they can give out the 3-hour Superman Donner cut and a Superman 2 Donner cut and the Snyder cut, I'm sure we could get this movie hashtag release the Joel Schumacher Batman cut. Now, I urge you all to check this film out. Don't dismiss it because of everybody's hatred towards, and rightfully so, Batman and Robin. I say check this film out. Put your own opinions into it. And put all the critics' opinions aside as well, including mine. Check it out on your own if you haven't watched it. And if you have watched it and just don't remember what it was, check it out again, As I said, this is not a bad Batman film. By far. This is not a bad Batman film. I've said it was my favorite all the way up till when Dark Knight came out. And, it's in my top 3 Batman films of all time. Of course, I'm always going to say Batman v Superman. There's Dark Knight, this, and Batman v Superman when it comes to those Batman films. So do check it out, folks. Do check it out. And you will not be disappointed when it comes to this film. You may, and check out the deleted scenes as well when you see it on DVD, if you get it on DVD or something, folks, because those help and enhance the film even more. Now, when Batman Forever came out, it was a big moneymaker. It knocked, when it came to the highest grossing opening day, it knocked Jurassic Park, who came out the year before, knocked it out of the top of the list. So Batman and Forever was not a flop, but to say the least. And it prompted Warner Brothers to fast track real quick. I mean, a little too fast for anybody's take or taste when it came to the next film. But Joel Schumacher did come back. And, I don't know. Second time wasn't a charm for him. So, but we'll be talking about that in the next episode, next part of episode 24 of the Movie Dawgs Show. Again, don't forget, like and subscribe. If you haven't yet, folks, help this channel and this show, reach big heights this year. And again, I appreciate everybody who's been watching the countdown to the Batman series here on this channel. I've had so much fun doing it and getting all the information and getting the graphics and looking for the stuff. I've had such a blast getting this thing done. So do check out part 2 of episode 24 after this. Again, folks, thanks so much for watching, and please keep on watching. Bye.